My gambling experience first began at the age of 6. My father used to be a sports bettor, and he would take me with him. It became a ritual thing for me because I grew up playing sports and loving sports, was a big fan of sports. It evolved into where we would go to the dog track together. When I was 17, I lost my mother, and that was very devastating in my life. I didn't realize at the time that impact led me into depression, which went undiagnosed for well over 20 years, really. After her passing, buried myself between school and work, but there was always one day a week where I wasn't working or I wasn't going to school. I filled that time with going to the dog track, and that became my escape. My gambling after that continued to evolve over time to include everything from lottery to horse racing, harness racing, casinos, both at the tables and also the slots. In 1994, I made my first trip to Las Vegas. It was during that time that my gambling certainly changed. I basically became self-destructive. Was able to hide a lot of that. Led me down a path that a number of years later resulted in me committing criminal acts with which I was able to obtain money to continue gambling. That resulted in 3 years in prison. And you would think that after that, someone would learn their lesson. But that's not how it works when you've developed into a pathological problem gambler. Yes, I could go stretches where I didn't gamble, but when that craving and that urge developed, I had to go. I might go years in between gambling bitches, but when I went, it was $30,000, $40,000. It's not about the money. It's not about, whether you lost $100 or $100,000. Once you cross that line into addiction, there's no stopping it on your own. It just doesn't happen that way. You can't turn it off like a light switch. One of the biggest misconceptions that I think people have, they just say, well, just stop, just quit. It doesn't work that way. That's not how your brain is wired. Once you cross over into that addiction phase, it's no different from alcohol, it's no different from drugs. There are a lot of misconceptions that people believe you can just stop, and you can't. It doesn't work that way. It takes treatment. And it wasn't until 2016, after another gambling binge in Las Vegas, that I came home to the point where I was ready to take my life. I had no idea whether my marriage was going to last, but I knew one thing, that if I was going to survive myself, I needed treatment, and spent 30 days in their inpatient treatment program. What they basically did was broke my life down. They took me to my earliest memories of gambling. They looked at everything leading up through my gambling history, was able to identify not only mental health disorders that I was suffering from, but also the pattern and the triggers that led me into my gambling. I knew within about the first 10 days that things were starting to change. Things that I had completely taken for granted and forgotten, everything from my family to just the breeze on my skin or the smell of the flowers or listening to the sound of the birds chirp, that I was on the right path. I made a commitment that when I left treatment that I wanted to become involved as an advocate. This is a silent disorder, and many people don't realize that people lose their lives on a daily basis from this. I had reached a level where it nearly took my life. I didn't want that for anyone else. I didn't want others to have to face prison or losing their jobs or losing their families, because that's what happens. In the long term, people get so involved with the gambling that they take everything else around them for granted. This is not something to fear. If you truly want to recover, you can. I would encourage anyone out there who thinks that they might have a gambling problem to reach out for help. Help is available. Treatment works. I'm proof of that. I checked all the boxes when it came to pathological and destructive gambling. I'm now approaching 7 years of abstinence. and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. My life, the last 7 years, has been better than all of my years to date added up.